I'm Samantha.
I'm sitting in my penthouse office overlooking Central Park, surrounded by my family. My brother, Ethan, and sister, Lily, along with my parents and Lily's law firm managing partner, Mr. Thompson, are all here, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. The room is filled with the hum of my AI system, Psyche, as it displays complex data on the walls. Just moments ago, I revealed that I'm the anonymous consultant behind all the critical psychological assessments in their high-profile business deals. Ethan, a high-flying investment banker at Morgan Stanley, thought I was a failure with my psychology degree. Lily, a successful lawyer at a top-tier firm, always looked down on my so-called therapy business. It all started at a family dinner. We were gathered around my parents' large oak dining table. Ethan, with his usual arrogance, smirked at me. "Samantha, if you'd gotten a real business degree instead of that useless psychology PhD, you have something to brag about at these family dinners." I took a slow sip of my wine, thinking about the confidential merger documents in my office safe, documents that could make or break his latest deal. My mother, a kind-hearted but traditional woman, chimed in. "We just want you to reach your potential, dear. All that education, and what do you have to show for it?" My father, a no-nonsense businessman, began his usual parade of family achievements. "Ethan just closed another multi-billion-dollar deal at Morgan Stanley, and Lily's firm is handling the biggest corporate merger of the year, the Harris and Company merger." I hid my smile behind my wine glass. They had no idea that I was the consultant both companies had hired to evaluate the psychological viability of that merger. And I was likely going to reject it. Aunt Grace asked with feigned concern, "Any progress with your consultation business, Samantha?" "It's going fine," I replied. Ethan laughed. "She probably has a couple of clients with anxiety. Meanwhile, I'm handling real business." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my executive assistant. A meeting with the Treasury Department was confirmed for the next day. They wanted my assessment of a new economic policy. Lily leaned forward and said, "Our firm is always looking for corporate counsel. Even with your unusual background, we might find an entry-level position for you." I thought about the psychological profile I'd compiled on Mr. Thompson, the one he'd paid a fortune for last month. I politely declined, saying I was happy with my current work. Ethan scoffed. "Listening to people's problems all day isn't work. It's glorified therapy." I softly replied, "You'd be amazed at what people reveal when they talk. Their fears, plans, and vulnerabilities can have a huge impact on business decisions." My father interrupted. "Ethan's team is finalizing the acquisition of the Carter Group next week. Now that's real business." I remembered my meeting with the Carter Group earlier that day. They'd asked for my evaluation of Morgan Stanley's acquisition offer, and I was going to recommend rejection. Ethan's team had missed critical psychological indicators in the corporate culture compatibility. I casually asked, "How's the Carter Group acquisition going?" Ethan frowned, proceeding, "Why?" "Just curious about human behavior patterns in high-stakes negotiations," I said. Lily rolled her eyes. "There you go again with the psychology nonsense. You'll never understand real business." My phone buzzed again. An urgent call from Harris and Company. They wanted to triple my fee for an expedited merger evaluation. Ethan pointed his fork at me. "You're too passive. In real business, you have to be aggressive." I thought about how I was about to derail his Carter Group deal. "Sometimes, the quiet ones have the most power," I said. Ethan laughed. "You sit in an office listening to people talk. That's not power." I smiled slightly and asked, "How many of your deals require psychological compatibility assessments?" He waved it off. "Some consultant nonsense. The clients insist on it. It's a waste of time and money." But then, realization dawned on his face as he started to connect the dots. My phone lit up again. Morgan Stanley was requesting an urgent meeting regarding the Carter Group acquisition. I excused myself and stepped into my parents' study, knowing that the next day, Ethan would discover who really held the power in his billion-dollar deals. The next morning in my office, Psyche announced that Morgan Stanley's CEO, Mr. Davis and Ethan's team were arriving in 5 minutes. I adjusted my Prada suit, the one Lily had mocked at dinner. I instructed Psyche to keep Ethan's team in the secondary conference room. As Mr. Davis walked in, his body language showed anxiety.
Dr.
Samantha, we have a situation with the Carter Group acquisition, he said. I nodded and said I assumed he'd seen my preliminary assessment. He slumped into a chair. It's devastating. Your analysis of our corporate culture incompatibility and the predicted post-merger staff retention rates are eye-opening. Psyche displayed the compatibility matrices on the wall, showing complex psychological patterns and behavioral predictions. Mr. Davis continued, your brother's team missed everything you caught. The Carter Group's focus on autonomy and collaborative decision-making style is completely incompatible with our current acquisition strategy. I glanced at Psyche's security feed. Ethan and his team had just realized whose office they were in. Their faces went from confusion to shock as they saw my name on the door. I instructed Psyche to send them in. Ethan entered first, his swagger replaced by fear. Samantha, you're the consultant. Mr. Davis corrected him sharply. Dr. Samantha, show some respect. She's the top corporate psychological profiler in the country. I watched Ethan struggle to come to terms with the fact that his banking empire's fate rested in my hands. He protested. The Carter Group deal is solid. I cut him off. The numbers don't account for human nature. Your aggressive acquisition style directly conflicts with their collaborative culture. The implementation would fail within 6 months. Mr. Davis nodded. Dr. Samantha's previous predictions have been accurate to within 3%. Her assessment is final. Ethan collapsed into a chair. How long have you been doing this? He asked. I smiled and said, remember when you mocked my first corporate client 5 years ago? That client was the Secretary of the Treasury. I then turned to Mr. Davis and said, I have an alternative strategy for the Carter Group acquisition that would preserve both corporate cultures while achieving your growth objectives. He quickly agreed, saying my track record spoke for itself. As I was discussing the alternative strategy, Lily called again about the Harris and Company merger. I told her it needed a complete psychological reassessment. Mr. Thompson, who had arrived with Lily, was shocked. He realized that all the deals that required a special consultant's approval were actually handled by me. I pulled up more data on Psyche, showing the success rate of my endorsed ventures and the failure rate of those I'd rejected. The numbers were impressive, and it silenced my family. My father finally spoke. Samantha, surely we can discuss this as a family. I turned to him and said, like you discussed my career choices as a family? All those dinners mocking my degree and my work. How's that working out now? Later that night, as I sat in my private study, my phone was filled with messages from my family. Aunt Grace wanted business advice, and my mother said they should have listened. I archived the messages and opened my calendar. For the next family dinner, I'd booked a private room at the most exclusive restaurant in the city, the one I owned. Sometimes, success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about letting them slowly discover just how right you've been all along. And I, the quiet one with a psychology degree, control the fate of their business empires with a single psychological assessment.